getting their information so much from TV. They're getting it from the internet, from the phones. What grade is your daughter in now? I will always, always remember her. You guys were in here. Everybody was up in the box. She went up there. But she was like a 3 or 4-year-old kid. Checking around and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, we're going to put a stop to that now. And then, we follow each other. You know, we see Luke doing some college and prom pictures and all this other stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, I know.
slow down. How's the
Better. They, one last night, because they were on the street with me, and he was only in detention. So their last regular season is Saturday, and then it's tournament time. We'll see what happens. Crazy. Their college is super strict that if you couldn't have a full complement because of COVID issues, you had to work. Most other conferences allow them to be sick. So it's
So you had to have a full team to...
you had too many people out of COVID who couldn't even let their dog out. I know. Yes, it's terrible.
Does this help you? Looking at it and... No problem. I brought it in not knowing what we were going to have, so if I can help you, then that's great. I'm John. Nice to meet you.
Just in the nick of time. 30 seconds.
It's going to be at 4 o'clock. I just want to announce. Only kidding.
The weather outside is delightful.
We're going to move this down just a little bit so that fuzz isn't quite so high.
Really, is that what they call it?
Fuzz, whatever. I call it fuzz because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Not even for a few months. Not even this. No. Your math works. Oh, look at Paul trying to help.
Thank you.
I'll take
your fun.
Ah! All right.
That was easy. That was low-hanging fruit there, K-Fed.
Well, slides here, everybody?
Everybody?
Okay. Everybody.
Yesterday for the Republican president.
It's not what my outfit is. You know what happens when we tell them
It was actually not good. I'm gonna give it to them. Today it was like, it should have been a snow day. Today should have been a snow day. For the first time in a while.
there was like a couple weeks ago where it was
Oh my god, when it was 30 degrees and raining? No, that should not have been. Wrong call. Because they had just messed up
yeah.
with freezing rain.
Right.
Issues before, so it was like,
Yeah. You know it's bad when you wake up and you're like, rather than quiet.
Talking about it, that's it.
did you snow blow it or no?
Yeah.
You did?
Well, I tried, I mean, it was heavy, just a little bit, obviously. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, it's on, so it was enough.
I was like, I didn't know if it was like enough to snow blow or not. No, like,
You could go on a high speed, and just quickly go up and down the driveway, so fast.
I thought it'd be easy to just move along, somebody straight out the papers, and they just grab shovel, he cleared half up to the driveway, oh my god. So I do have mine.
waste up. Exactly. It's waste up anyway, so it was like, why am I bothering? Right, that's true.
Well, I think the,
Did you see any cops out there at all? Or they just-
ski without them.
Okay.
How could you ski without the pass?
Whenever there's slush on the highway, slush at intersections, and it just makes it harder. Now suddenly you're driving through, you got all this stuff.
Ski with your friends.
told you by the time they're going home, what is it? Actually, trying to work. As the day goes on, hopefully it'll be okay. They shoot those wings with antifreeze. How long it's been sitting around. They can be back on that, coming back to wow, pretty fast. Oh, pretty fast.
I decided at the last minute for this, but I know high school graduates within like 4 years, you know, it's close to that.
Sure. Yeah, nobody should have any time to hear. Better than nothing. Better than whatever the hell we'll be doing. Screwing around with stuff.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I know you were counting on a snow day today, but I just wanted to introduce our team and let you know everything we're doing to give you confidence in terms of accountability and transparency when it comes to your state government, and in particular when it comes to school construction, where there's been an awful lot of discussion and some investigations and some allegations. I'll tell you about the changes we're going to be making to make sure that we give you the total confidence that your money is being invested in the most appropriate way possible without question. And Michelle Gilman, our acting Commissioner of DAS, will point out some of those changes that we're making. And Noel Petro, as you know, we've moved school construction over to Department of Administrative Services. Noel has taken that over since late October. Noel is going over each and every one of these school construction projects just to give you confidence that we're getting these investments right. First off, I just wanted to inform you about some changes at the Office of Policy and Management. Yesterday evening, I just got back from Israel and I drove up, and Melissa McCaw, Secretary of OPM, I just got together, and she informed me that she was going to make a change and that she wanted to, she was going to take a job as finance director for the city of East Hartford. And I got to tell you on a personal basis that Melissa is a great friend and has been an extraordinary Secretary of OPM. She took over at a real time of dire need in the state, when we were confronted with a $3.75 billion deficit. We had about 60 days to put that budget together. And we worked around the clock to get that right. And a lot of people said, this isn't a real budget, it's smoke and mirrors, it's not going to be in balance. That's not the way Melissa McCaw does it. That budget was in balance the next year, and we had a surplus the year thereafter, and a surplus the year thereafter, a budget that was built to last. That's what Melissa McCaw did for us. You know, along the way, she said how important it is that we make sure that our rainy day fund is honors the commitment made by the legislature back in 2017. And she's done that. We have the biggest rainy day fund in the history of the state. And that's despite some incredible pressure. There are a lot of people that have their designs in the rainy day fund. You know, the Republicans wanted to pay for transportation out of the rainy day fund, and Melissa McCaw, you know, stayed true. At the same time, she's been first Secretary of OPM in history to start paying down our pension obligations. And that's never happened before. We're blessed with a good budget, an honest budget in place right now, and we can make those changes going forward. So on a personal note, I want you to know that I wish Melissa McCaw the very best in her new job at Finance Director. You know, I think she was looking for a fresh start, and I understand what she's doing. That said, Jeff Beckham has been her deputy for some time now. No stranger around this building. Jeff Beckham, as you know, was at OPM, Undersecretary for Legislative Affairs, experienced the Department of Administrative Services, back at OPM, and he will be taking over as acting Secretary of OPM as you know, Melissa takes her leave of absence and then moves over to East Hartford. He'll be working with you know, Tom and Paul, you know, folks on revenue side, on appropriations side. It's a seamless transition going forward, making sure that we get through this legislative session in a constructive way, get our budget done on time, provide real tax cuts for the first time in many years, and get our honestly balanced budget done on time. So, Jeff, you got a little bit of work to do, and you know, we're going to get that done. But back to the task at hand, I really want to introduce you to Michelle Gilman. She's going to give you a good sense of the changes we are making as regard construction projects, in particular as regard school construction, as we look at some of the allegations out there, bid steering and other things that are unproven, but we're taking a look at that and putting in place processes to make sure this never happens again. Michelle?
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to the Governor for this opportunity to speak about some of the actions that we're taking at Department of Administrative Services. Before I go into that, I did want to reintroduce myself as Michelle Gilman, Acting Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services. My hearing is actually scheduled for Tuesday before the legislature, so appreciate you know, that clarification in terms of any titles. In terms of what I'd like to comment on first is the announcement of the Secretary taking on this new role. I've had the pleasure of working with Secretary McCaw for several years now, since she started in this role, and I have the utmost respect as a colleague and as someone who has worked side by side with her both through the COVID pandemic and then before in my role with the Comptroller's Office. She brings incredible knowledge and expertise when it comes to budget and fiscal matters, and then certainly has been really an example throughout this COVID pandemic in showing flexibility and also how to utilize federal funds that were coming in and really maximizing those resources to support our state at a very challenging time. Beyond the COVID pandemic, I personally had the opportunity to work with the Secretary with the Council on Women and Girls, which the Lieutenant Governor had implemented upon the Governor and her entry into the Governor's office and the administration. And we had incredible conversations about the rise and journey of women and young girls into government and politics, And then also the importance of equity and women of color in particular coming into the workforce. So before I get into the school construction aspects, I really wanted to thank the Secretary for her work and the collaboration that we had, both on a personal level and then in my professional roles at the Office of the Comptroller, as Deputy COO, and then most recently at Department of Administrative Services. In terms of the school construction program, as most of you know, that was moved into the Department of Administrative Services Construction Services Program late last year. Since then, we have been taking numerous steps to ensure confidence in the program among our residents and also our school systems and municipalities across the state. Some of the more recent steps we have taken, and I will also defer to Deputy Commissioner Noel Petra, who's joined me here, but we have begun to contract with an outside auditing firm. We're finalizing actually the contracting process and RFP around that process, but looking to contract with one or multiple firms to do audits going back to 2018 on the school audit process. We're also looking at the hazmat contracts that were utilized and auditing that process as well. When we moved the construction services program for schools into DAS, we also separated out the audit functions and put them into the DAS business office. So the auditing function that's inherently part of the program is now separated from the school construction program to create a specific divide of those functions, which is appropriate and what we think will also help to instill confidence in the program. In addition, the Office of the Auditors of Public Accounts under the legislature's authority is working very closely with our office to also do their own internal audit. So we've been fully compliant and fully cooperative with that audit process as well. Also, in terms of our ethics policies, we do have robust ethics policies in our state, and our teams, our staff follow the laws and regulations of the ethics trainings that are provided by the Office of State Ethics, whether they're in person or online. We are taking a fresh look at trainings that we want to provide for our staff and that will be mandated at DAS. Routinely, these trainings are provided each year or at a specific frequency. We're going to be doing some refresher courses with all of our staff, starting with the construction services team and moving into procurement. And this follows on the governor's directive that we do additional ethics training for appointees, commissioners, deputy commissioners, and others in state government. So we're taking a very aggressive approach within our own agency. I also want to mention, and then I'll turn it over to Noel, that in terms of our procurement, we've taken a number of steps to look at best practices and how we can tighten up some procedures there. We've done some specific communications with towns and school systems this week on a number of contract issues. And we're also looking at reducing the timeframes by which RFPs are rolled out for bid. So perhaps a contract term or an RFP term at a 3 or 5 year level is not appropriate. Perhaps we should be going out to bid on a 2-year level for these services. That would also meet some of the commitments that we have and that I personally have as commissioner to increasing access for our small and minority business owners across the state and ensuring that we have a fully robust and accessible and diverse component of contractors across the spectrum for all goods and services across our state. So we're taking a fresh look at our procurement policies and looking to do additional measures around that. So we'll keep you informed as those roll out. So with that said, I'm happy to take questions at the end, but want to pivot to Noel Petra, who's our Deputy Commissioner at DAS under Construction Services, and he can talk about some additional specifics around the school construction program, and also a program that we're very excited about with our HVAC program that we'll be rolling out with the schools pending the legislature's approval. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Noel. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's been my pleasure to work with the Office of School Construction and Grants Review for the last 4 months. It's been a long 4 months. I'd like to thank the staff. They've done an excellent job of helping us get our arms around the process and the systems and the program. I'd like to thank Kevin Kopetz and Jenna Padula, who are my attorneys, who have been doing an unbelievable job. We have started to and have made a lot of progress in rebuilding the entire program. The governor asked us to dive in, find any problems, drag them out into the light, fix them, solve them, and make sure that the problems aren't ever to come back again. We have rebuilt the program already into a much more transparent and trustworthy program. We're trying to rebuild the confidence in the program. We've met with dozens of the school districts. We've met with dozens of legislators. We've met with all of the industry stakeholders. We've met with the trades. We have worked hand in hand with everyone to identify problems, to solve some of the problems, and to work together to solve the rest of the problems. We have a long way to go. We are going to be auditing these different municipality procurement practices. You know, how have they gone to bid? What contracts have they used? How have they used the contracts, and how do they affect the grant funds that the state provides to them? It's a long process, and we're working with a lot of people to make sure it gets back on track. So I thank the governor for the opportunity, and we're going to keep working. It's been a lot.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Beckham. I'll be taking over at OPM. I want to thank the governor for his confidence in honoring me with this appointment. I wish Secretary McCaw all the best in her future endeavors. She brought me back to OPM for a second tour of duty in the spring of 2019. It's been a privilege to watch her work. She's a brilliant fiscal strategist. As most of you know who cover the General Assembly regularly, the state government, the budget documents are a complex set of moving parts over multiple years. We have to comply with constitutional and statutory caps of various kinds. She mastered all of that in short order, and as the governor indicated, we've experienced very positive developments in our state's fiscal position in the last several years, and we aim to keep that going. He mentioned a couple of my colleagues, Paul Potamianos and Tom Fiore. I think some of you know Paul is our executive budget officer, has led us for many years in that capacity. Tom Fiore is our tax expert. Expect to have a vigorous tax debate this session. Be calling on those guys often. It's been my privilege to work at OPM twice now. It's my second tour. I know the team there quite well. They know me quite well. We work well together. I'm proud to be a part of that team. They're among the finest public servants I've ever worked with. We're going to keep the positive developments that we've seen in the state going, and we are going to dive in right away with activities in the General Assembly this session. We're with the Appropriations Committee soon with our work sessions. We're with the Bonding Subcommittee, the Finance Committee soon on our capital budget. We aim to get the budget done on time. That's important to the governor. We want to be under the spending cap, under all of our statutory caps, and deliver for the people of the state of Connecticut. That's my charge, and I look forward to it.
Any questions?
Lots.
Hearing none.
So on the question of the audits, can Commissioner Gilman, or the governor, or all of you, give us a sense of what is the normal cycle of audits looking at this stuff? How will these be different? Are these considered forensic audits? So, go.
Thank you, Mark.
So the special audits that we've put the RFP out for is an unusual situation. It's really a forensic audit. We're looking at how were hazmat funds and hazmat contracts used, and we're for the last, say, 5 years, and we're looking at how the auditors who audit the school construction program did their job, make sure there wasn't anything missed. So we're auditing the auditors, and we're auditing the hazardous material program.
So, is it correct that the 2016 list, the emergency bid list, that was done by DAS procurement people, not the Office of School Construction? So is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's done at the higher level, at the DAS procurement level.
All right. So the issue with the office was the appropriateness of using that list in the way it was used. Is that fair?
So the Office of School Construction doesn't actually perform demo work or perform any hazardous material abatement. What was happening is they were recommending the use of these contracts inappropriately. So they were recommending them to the school districts to be used when they really weren't intended to be used for that. These contracts, they're called on-call contracts or state contracts, they're really intended to be used for smaller emergency and projects that need to be done quickly. For example, if you had a leak in your roof at a town hall and you had to replace the ceiling, and you open up the ceiling and there's asbestos, well, you can't do any work while the asbestos is there. So you use the on-call contract, you bring in a contractor, they come and they clean it up, and you do the rest of your work. That was really the intent of these contracts decades ago. And over the years, slowly they started to expand them because they're easy to use, and now we really just need to rein them in. We've already sent out guidance, we've already sent out policies to all the municipalities, to all the school districts on the appropriate use of the on-call contracts.
So is the school construction grant program moving back to DAS out of OPM?
It has already moved back to DAS physically and professionally, yes.
When did that happen?
That happened in November, early November.
You've
What do you
mentioned,
mean by rebuilt the program?
So we've systematically looked at all of our systems, all of our processes, all of our procedures, basically how we do business. We've made sure that every item that we do, every policy that we have, every rule, every regulation is consistent with statute. We've had to change some things. We've also made things easier to use. We're trying to make it efficient, trying to make it simple, and we certainly want to make sure it's compliant with statute. So that's what I mean by rebuilding it. The staff is fine. The staff is actually excellent. They were thrilled to be able to bring the program back into compliance. They brought lots of ideas to us on how to improve the program. I'm really thrilled with the staff.
you've mentioned that there'll be extra training for the staff on ethics, and not to be too simplistic, but don't you think people know better, given some of the things that have transpired, things that they know that they shouldn't do, may happen? I mean, is it as simple as that?
Well, I think that is a simple way to look at it. You know, we're not dealing with managers, we're dealing with rank and file workers. They come to work, they do their job, they're directed on how to do their job, and that's what they're expected to do. So that's an oversimplification, I think, yes.
Do you think that, the training and some of these things will prevent what the federal investigators believe may have happened?
That's exactly right. For our staff, for the ethics training for our staff and for our managers, we're going to highlight this, use it as an example, and say these are the proper steps if you see something like this happening. We're also pushing it out to the municipalities. We're telling the school districts, if ever something like this happens again, if you feel pressure, if you feel like something's being done incorrectly, here's a phone number to call. You call the state auditors. There's a whistleblower number. We're really going to highlight the fact that one person in a director position or a group of people at a state office do not have the ability to force a municipality to do things that are not in compliance with statute.
In May of 2020, Kevin Lopez, the head of the legal unit,
Kevin Kopetz, yes? Yep.
And Gareth Bai were emailed by the lawyer for Stanford Grant.
Mhm.
Right? So you said this stuff sort of developed and eased into a misuse of that list. In May of 2020, was the standard clear? Was that wrong for that emergency bid list to be used the way it was?
So if you read the contract, you would realize that it wasn't intended to be used for that type of work. But if you go back to the decades of actual use of the contract, you would think, if you didn't read the contract, that it was appropriate. So if you go to work for a municipality and you're a facility manager and you say, hey, I need to fix this, I need to get rid of this asbestos, the person would say, well, we always use this contract. And they say, okay, so I'll use the contract. So it was a misuse, but it grew over time.
Is it no bid contract that caused more problems?
So that's a misnomer. It is not a no-bid contract. It is bid out at the DAS procurement level. They have to bid the pricing and they have to bid their qualifications. They enter into a contract. They call it a list because it's a list of contractors with an on-call contract in procurement. So they bid once at the DAS level. And then if a municipality calls them, they should be pricing and bidding again on the project basis. So the no bid contract is a misnomer.
I just wanted to get the time frame. Can I get the time frame right? Costa leaves 4 months ago, and are you saying you still have an RFP out? You haven't hired the auditors yet? Because you have an RFP 4 months later?
We have the RFP started probably a month and a half after he left.
The RFP started a month and a half later, but did you hire somebody? RFP just means it was...
No, not yet, no. We have not hired them yet. We are working on that.
We have hired the internal auditors are in internal.
We moved the internal auditors, but we haven't hired the external auditors yet.
Governor,
Okay. Thank you.
Governor, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You know, this is the heart of budget season. What message does it send that Ms. McCaw has left?
Look, what we want to do today is show you that we take this seriously, give people confidence. We know how to get this right. And I think you've heard this today, that there may be some bad habits that accrued over many, many years, and we're getting it right. This is the budget season. I got to do everything I can to give our taxpayers confidence that it's the first business guy to lead the state in many years. We're making the investments. We're holding people accountable. We got the auditors coming in. We got a whistleblower line. We're doing it what it takes. Nola's taken over. A whole new group is there.
Do you think she was responsible? I mean, she was overseeing OPM and the project was under their office.
She was overseeing a $24 billion budget in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of things going on. No.
Was there any reason to move the school construction office to OPM other than the fact that Mr. Diamantis wanted to keep that classified position when he also accepted Melissa's offer to become the deputy secretary of OPM?
Well, I can ask, maybe Noel's better to take that. I will tell you, she needed a deputy. She asked for Costa to come over. Costa had been doing the school construction, so I guess in mid-construction they figured it was better to transition that over. But you have a better answer than that?
Sure. No, thank you for the question. I mean, I think we can look at the past and make some and have some lessons learned in terms of how that process worked, and some of the benefits of that program continuing to run and operate, whether it was under DAS or OPM, that schools got the services they needed. But obviously there's been some exposure in terms of some processes and procedures that were not followed, and continued review of what the impact of that is.
Do you know
Wait, can I follow? Was there a policy reason or not to move it? Or was it just that Melissa wanted a certain deputy and that was the condition of getting it?
Well, I think at the time, and I wasn't in this role, and I wasn't with the agency, but at the time, it made sense to, move those functions as the deputy at the time oversaw them. I know there was a lot of discussion around that move, but it happened, and we can, talk about that, for months and months ahead. The point is that it's now been moved back to OPM. We have the construction expertise, and we have again taken some next steps to change the program and to strengthen it. So I know there will be discussions, for probably several weeks, and I know the legislature is anxious to also have the conversations, and we're open to all of those. But I think the fact of the matter is that we are restructuring this program. We're building confidence and integrity into the program that we have to help support our towns and municipalities. And I think it's important to remember that largely this program through DAS and previously through OPM is in fact to support our towns and cities. We really strongly believe that this program is about local control. They are making decisions about the schools and the vendors that they select for these projects. We are largely looking to provide them technical support, provide them contractors as they need, but we're overseeing the regulations and the finances of these projects within the confines of state bond funds and other funds. So our role is more limited.
Let me simplify Mark's question. Did he want it or did she want it?
I can't speak to that. I was not in this role at that time. I think that there's a lot of discussion about how that program moved into OPM. at the time. And again, I think there's a lot of newspaper articles and other reports on how that occurred. From what I gather, it was an agreement between the agencies and the governor's office to move forward on that. And again, we've now learned that it is best situated at this time under the Department of Administrative Services.
So, Governor, did you or did your administration ask Melissa to leave? Did you ask her to get another job somewhere?
No,
You did not.
Can you
This
tell
is
us what
totally her idea?
that's right.
Were you surprised that she's leaving?
I wasn't shocked. There's a lot of back and forth going on right now. It's distracting. Wants to take, get through OPM, get through this budget cycle. Probably figured a fresh start over in East Hartford made sense for her and makes sense for OPM right now.
Can you
And do
share with us?
do you believe that she properly supervised her deputy, Costa Diamantis, as they worked together for years?
Look, I've got confidence in her as, Secretary of OPM. I think she did a very good job. It's a big agency, a lot of things going on.
Can you share with us in your conversation with her? I mean, obviously, we're in the middle of a scandal, how this has impacted her. Did she say that was part of her decision to leave?
Look, it was a private conversation. She came over to the residence. We sat down. We've shared a lot over the last 3 years, and she told me it's time to make a move.
Do you feel that it was time for her to make a move?
choice,
Do you feel that it was?
Just one second, please.
Do you feel that it was time for her to make a move?
No, like I said, I think Melissa McCaw has been an extraordinary Secretary of OPM, but I understood exactly what she was doing and why she was doing it.
So was it a personal choice on her, or was it a professional choice, or was it that she just wanted a clean slate?
I know, you better ask her that.
Governor, you're
Governor,
in the
what
building.
level of responsibility do you bear as the head of this administration for anything that has gone wrong in that school construction program, anything that was happening at the Office of Policy and Management that perhaps shouldn't have happened?
I think I would bear responsibility if I didn't react immediately. I think I reacted immediately. As soon as we found out about the personnel issue between Costa and Colangelo, we acted on that pretty darn fast. We then went and got Stan Twardy, a former U.S. attorney. I said, I want a complete debriefing on everything that happened here, and I want to make that public going forward. About that same time, we heard about the federal investigation. I told my team, you participate 100%, leave no stone unturned. So if I can do one thing to give the taxpayers confidence, when I see something wrong, we address it and we fix it.
Governor, McCaw has been labeled as a brilliant strategist. She was formerly here at the city of Hartford as their director. Going to East Hartford, while it's a great job, it's really beneath her. She has been described as this wonderful OPM director. Was there anything else that could have been done for her? It just seems like an odd move.
Nobody was doing anything for her. She did this herself. She reached out. She made the change. It was the right thing for her at this time.
Governor, did you ask her? Did you ask her at all to sign any kind of agreement that she would not sue the state at all? I mean, there's
Hey,
obviously...
one second. What's that again?
Did you ask her, Melissa, at all to sign any kind of agreement that she would not sue the state before resigning? There's obviously...
I don't think anything's been signed that I know of.
Is this effective immediately?
I believe she's going to take a leave of absence for a couple of weeks before, and she'll be starting very soon in East Hartford.
Why is she not here today?
Well, I have a new acting secretary of OPM. I think this is a transition. We're emphasizing the transition.
Just to be clear, there's no...
If it's a positive transition, I'm not clear on why she's not here.
She more than welcome, but what we're doing is talking about new acting secretary of OPM, the changes we're making at DAS. That was the focus.
Governor, aside from the issue about hazardous abatement, use of that contract, there's also a separate issue that has been raised about the Tallinn School being declared an emergency, and that did excuse it from bidding requirements. And so, looking at that now, are you confident that was the right decision? This was, I'll stipulate, this is the previous administration, a previous DAS commissioner, who did the emergency declaration that allowed the Tallinn School to be rebuilt without competitive bidding. So, was that the right decision?
I don't know that particular instance. I think Noel said it very well. These contractor lists are very specific to immediate emergencies, where if your roof is leaking, you don't have time for a 5-week RFP process. It sounds to me Tallinn was a broad expansion of emergency in that case, and that was
No, that
broad.
wasn't the emergency list. This was a different emergency. This is, it was separate from the hazardous waste, but I take it you have not been briefed in that.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Sorry, this happened long before anybody else was here, and it was back when the crumbling foundations was a big deal. Everyone was nervous. As soon as the parents found, this is what I've heard through the staff, when the parents found out that their school had a crumbling foundation, there was panic. The use of an emergency situation there for a small part of the school now probably would not be seen as realistic. Back then, when there was a lot of panic, when you have kids in an elementary school and there's a crumbling foundation, everyone panicked. So I'm not supposed to speculate. In this, I'm speculating based on the feedback from my team. I think we had a lot of panicking parents,
Okay,
and
but
so they made an
you
exception.
get the emergency to get the trailers to do the temporary school. I think that's easily to understand why that was an emergency. You needed it right away because an engineer said you have to stop using the school now. But as far as going out to bid on building a brand new school,
Yeah.
you
This
say
was
that doesn't make
long
sense?
before I was here. I don't know
Well,
enough
it was
details.
2018 into, it wasn't.
I wasn't here.
Governor, so you had a meeting with the building trades in July of 2020, and you made clear, and the union people made clear that there was an item on their agenda about Mr. Diamantis and Tallinn. And you said, and they've said that didn't come up. You didn't get that far to you. But did you ever see the memo they prepared? Because there were some specific complaints.
No,
about-
never saw it,
You never
never
saw it?
came up, never distributed, didn't see it.
Okay, and you never, there was a rebuttal that Mr. Diamantis wrote. Did you ever see that?
No, sir.
Governor, did Ms.
That's why I have an
McCaw
OPM
express to you
secretary.
that she felt disrespected by your other advisors?
Look, I talked to Melissa a lot. We had a close relationship. It's a lot of pushing and shoving. It's a tough job. You got legislators, you got commissioners. Everybody, wants a piece. So it was not an easy 3 years, and she got the job done.
In hindsight, given the complaint that came in 2020 from Stanford Wrecking, that the lawyers at OPM and the people who came over from DAS did respond to immediately. The email trail is clear. In hindsight, at what point should you have been briefed to say, there's an issue about how this emergency bid list for hazardous waste was used, and it did take millions of dollars in demo work outside of competitive bidding. At what point should you have been brought in on that?
I think there was a red flag and there was something untoward happening. Probably a good thing for me to notice. But look, on every single hazardous waste contracting list, I've got great commissioners. I rely upon my commissioners. I give them the latitude. And I think they've tried to do the right thing every day.
So was it only until October of last year on the issue of Mr. Diamantis' daughter being employed by the chief state's attorney? Is that the first time that questions crossed your desk about his management or whatever?
Pretty such, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that's pretty
If-
true.
If there was problems,
We had to move pretty fast when I saw
If there
that.
was problems between Melissa and the staff, have you directed the staff to give the good graces of their offices to Mr. Beckham? Are there any changes going to be made? In other words, if Melissa had a hard job, as you described.
What was that? The good graces of their...
Of their,
Look,
that, have you directed?
Jeff knows the commissioners. He's been around. He's been in the legislature. We've got amazing commissioners. He's going to work with them closely. We're going to get through the next, 8 weeks in this budget. We're going to get it done on time. We're going to get it with no tax increases. In fact, we're going to cut taxes, something people have promised but not gotten done for many, many years around this state, and give people a real sense of confidence so we know how to govern the state going forward and make a difference now and for the future. Hey, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
When Paul Mounds, on your authority, fired Costa as Melissa's deputy, did Melissa concur with that, or did she object?
I don't know.
You don't know? Wait a minute. Did you not have a conversation with your OPM secretary about your office going in there and firing her deputy?
Didn't have that conversation. Paul made that determination. I think it was the right determination.
And at the time he left, you said it was all about the daughter's hiring. You did know about this federal subpoena that had come in 8 days earlier. That came in October 20th. You fired him.
I think Nora had mentioned that to me. just in passing, it came about simultaneously, Paul.
Okay, so the approximate reason for the firing is, as you've said before, it was about the nepotism issue, not the
It was
federal.
a Board of Ethics issue, it was clear, and that's how we acted on it. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Sorry. Hey, no one's up.